Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's PowerBrew. Today's PowerBrew, we're going to invite to join us on the webinar Allison Kelly, who is joining us from Annapolis, Maryland. We'll get to introducing Allison in just a bit, but today's webinar is Keeping Customers for Life. I'm Libby Trossel, Senior Director of Corporate Solutions and Workforce Training with Advantage C, and with me today is Sonia Hand, Director of Corporate Solutions.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to introduce Advantage C. Advantage C is the new name for business training and services at Carroll Community College. So if you've been with us for previous months, you know that that is the sponsor of the PowerBrews, and we just recently rebranded. In fact, just last week we announced our rebranding as Advantage C, Corporate Training Excellence Guaranteed. And on your screen you'll see our information about our 4 core services: training, consulting, facilitation, and assessment. We have a new website now, so for more information you can visit us at advantage-c.com. But I just very quickly want to mention that for more than 25 years we've had services for the business community to help them be more productive and increase the performance of their employees. These services, a core service is training, of course, which many are aware of, but I also want to take a moment to highlight our consulting, facilitation, and assessment services for you this morning. So again, the PowerBrews are brought to you by Advantage C, and we thank you for joining us today.
So this is Sonia. Good morning, everyone. And I want you, before we begin the PowerBrew, in case you haven't been on with us before, just to familiarize yourself with the webinar workspace. On the right-hand side of your screen, you have the control panel, and you will see a little red button with a white arrow in it. That collapses and expands your control panel. We we encourage everyone to put questions in throughout the webinar. So if you have questions about anything that Allison is talking about, if you have comments, please use the questions panel. There will be a little plus sign next to the word questions in your control panel that opens that up, and so that also collapses and expands. You can open that up and just type your questions directly into that section. Some questions may be answered during the webinar, and then depending on time, we'll try to get to some additional questions at the end of the session today. Any remaining questions that we aren't able to get to by the time our time is up today will be followed up through a follow-up email. So we encourage you to do that. It's always great to be able to have some feedback and questions from the participants. So Allison Kelly is our presenter today, and we are happy to have her. Allison has worked as adjunct faculty with Advantage C and Carroll Community College for many years. She is a favorite instructor. She's a motivational trainer. She's extremely energetic and has extensive experience working with Fortune 500 companies. She from Ireland, as you'll be able to tell from her accent if you haven't already become familiar with Allison. She's got a great accent, so that's always fun to be able to listen to as well. She's received awards from the government in Ireland, as well as from Anne Arundel County Public Schools for excellence in the design and delivery of training. And her extensive management and consulting skills really provide our clients with a creative approach to improving performance, including customer service, management leadership, processes, and profitability. So we are very excited to be able to have Allison with us today. Good morning, Allison.
Morning, everybody. How are we doing?
Doing great.
Doing
We're
great.
going to give Allison control of the presentation. It's going to take just a second here while we transition.
All right, Allison, you have control now.
Okay. Let me make sure that it is working here. Okay. Alrighty. So, one of the folks that I admire in customer service is Richard Branson, who is the CEO and developer of a lot of companies such as Virgin Airlines, Virgin Mobile Phones, Virgin Records. From my many years of traveling across the Atlantic, it's one of my favorite airlines to go. And that's when I got interested in his businesses first, because it was definitely different customer service that I received when I was on Virgin Airlines compared to others. So one of the things that I like about him is that he places a lot of emphasis on internal customer service, looking after our customers, our internal customers, our employees, helps us look after our front-end customers. So the way you treat your employees is the way they will treat your customers, kind of number one golden rule. So that theme will be common throughout the presentation today. So, keeping customers for life, kindness matters. Today's objectives, looking after our internal customer first. I'm going to be focusing on that for the first part of the presentation, giving you some recent examples that I've had. I travel a lot in different areas, different arenas to give some training, some being public service around the state of Maryland, others being private Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, as diverse as working in public works or with police and fire in a city or town, to being in the Ravens locker room teaching customer service to the 3,500 employees that actually have to work there, employees and contractors, on a home game. So we'll talk about the internal customer service first for a lot of this. Little things matter. Internal small acts of kindness, how we kind of influence internally to get people to really think about treating people well, and little tiny acts of kindness that will add to building a relationship with our internal customers and our external customers. And then external kindness, the acts that customers notice. So we'll talk to that and to some, again, very recent examples that I'm seeing in relation to that. It's funny, as a consultant, trainer, and adjunct faculty member, it's interesting to see the trends that people book for workshops. In the last 14, 15 years, I remember, gosh, about 10 years ago, the big trend in training was how we were going to do succession planning for all the baby boomers who were going to retire early. And obviously world events changed that around, and then it was a huge kind of influence in the 4 generations, now the 5 generations in the workplace. And currently I'm seeing in the last 18 months a huge spike in the need for customer service training and internal team building, and getting back to very basics of building relationships with customers in order to actually grow that lifetime relationship. So current trends, we will talk about a few of them and what I've experienced out there, and also what is coming up in different training around the country at the moment. And then we'll have time, as Libby and Sonia said, we'll have time for questions hopefully at the end, and throughout they will stop me as they monitor any questions that are coming in, either via the polls here or who may have come in ahead of time on the workshop. Okay, so again, there's my man Richard Branson. Perhaps it's because he has his own island in the Caribbean. I don't know, but yes, I'm impressed with this guy. So here's the big thing. Clients do not come first. Employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. And that's a quote that I live by when it comes to working with any of the teams that I work with on any of the projects that I have. Some of the associates that work with me directly, and with the adjunct team members that I have in the college. So if we look after each other, we're bound to look after the employee, our employees. If we look after our employees, we're bound to look after our customers better. So what our internal customers want? Big trend that I'm hearing, and I've got some examples to show you in the last couple of weeks. Compassion. They're looking for us to realize what may be going on in their lives without crossing the boundary of privacy, but to realize that they have other things going on as well as the workplace. So compassion. Folks are looking for compassion. understanding, we're going to talk about that, of really having some empathy to what they may be facing in the front line or in the behind the scenes type of jobs that make up our customer service teams. And then thanks. Folks are looking for thanks. And again, my style is, when you meet me face to face, I am a storyteller. It is the Irish in me. But I do believe real life stories bring learning to reality for folks, that it's not just book smart and it's not just the latest survey said, to actually give real life examples. So I'll give you some of all of these. Little things matter. You're going to hear that throughout my presentation. Compassion, life events, bereavement, making the passing of a beloved family member, including pets, making that, marking that and making it important and relevant to the team. And honor the passing of a work colleague. And what I want to tell you about is a personal story of mine first. When I first came to America 23 years ago, I was working for an environmental consulting firm. And I had told them when I came in temping originally, wasn't planning to stay there, and they'd offered me a permanent job. And I had told them that I had a critically ill nephew in Ireland and that I would have to go home if the inevitable happened. And it was about a year or so later when the inevitable happened and my nephew passed away. And so I called my boss, and at that time I had been working long hours on a salary, long hours for this gentleman on crunches of projects and stuff. And I called him on a Sunday night with the really sad news, and I flew home to Ireland to the funeral. So I was gone for a week, and I came back, and I, being my background is human resources, I looked up the employee handbook while doing my timesheet, and it didn't have a section for nephews, but it had, you know, family members mentioned out, you know, son, stepson, stepdaughter, all that. And it had other relations at the discretion of management up to 3 days. So I put 3 days on my timesheet as bereavement leave, and I gave it to my manager. And he came back a moment later and said, "You're not entitled to those days off. You'll have to take the time off without pay." It stuck with me, and it had a huge impact on our relationship from there on in. I contacted Human Resources. I sent them an email and explained, you know, the situation, that I had to get to and from Ireland for the funeral, and that I had made the company aware when I joined the company. And Human Resources apologized for the oversight and said I absolutely was entitled to the 3 days. So we've got to, as managers, supervisors, team members, know what we can offer our staff and offer it before they ask for it when it comes to bereavement. But recently I had, and I don't know if any of you heard it locally, there was a really serious bus accident, a fatality, 6 fatalities bus accident in Baltimore 2 weeks ago. And I've been working really closely with the MTA and bus operators for the last 2 years on a customer service project. So we had, early in the morning, actually I was going to teach a class, 2 superintendents on the day that it happened, the morning that it happened, and we got news and we had to cancel the class because the individuals in the class had to handle the situation. So one of their bus operators was killed on the job. And it was immediately, they didn't know what to do. Staff were still running, people were hearing it over the radio, it was on the TV, it was a quite graphic accident, a school bus hit a public bus. So in the week that followed, the company did, you know, in the days and weeks that followed, the company did a great job of reaching out to staff. They got bereavement counsellors in, they set up a memorial, they, you know, all the senior staff went to the memorial itself that the family ran, and then ran one internally. In the same week, 2 other MTA employees passed away, one from a long-term illness and another from a motorbike accident. And people didn't acknowledge it. Management didn't acknowledge it. And staff, when I was going to give classes, I was starting our classes, and I told all our instructors on the project to be sure to mark a moment of silence at the beginning for the bus operator who lost her life in the line of duty. It turned out I had people crying in class. I had people crying after class and talking about the 3 deaths within the week and how riveting it was and stuff. So I had to kind of go back to some of the managers and say, you know, everybody counts, and even though it happens outside of the work, I know we were all engulfed with this huge tragedy, but we have to watch for what's happening. So be aware of that, and you know, pets are family too, as we know. With people, they become, you know, a member of the family for folks, and just maybe it's just a little simple card that you leave on somebody's desk. It doesn't have to be, because everybody handles grief differently, but an acknowledgement, particularly from folks that you supervise and folks that you work directly with, is very important. New additions, celebrating new additions to their personal life, births, adoptions, marriages, and again I put the pets as family members there. Definitely, you know, celebrate that in a way that people know that you're happy for them and you're aware that their circumstances have changed a little. Particularly if you attended the Generations PowerBrew last month, you'll recognize that certainly our Xers and our Millennials absolutely expect that their family and their family life and their children and their pets are part of a discussion in the day-to-day life, where boomers and older may or may not expect it as much in the workplace because it wasn't as openly, readily available for us to chat about our kids and stuff back in the 80s. So, new hires. Here's a thing that I hear a lot when I go around different companies. Somebody new started, but I don't know what they do, and I don't know what their background is. Particularly when we're in larger organizations and larger teams, be sure to introduce folks and give a little bio. I talked to that story of when I was a human resource manager. Well, I was called a personnel manager back in the day. When I was a human resource manager in a manufacturing company in Ireland. We had, the owner of that company was a very personable guy, and he really liked to know and invest in everybody that worked for him. He liked to know their names, he liked to know their family, he was very family oriented and cared a lot for his staff. We were growing at a very fast pace, excuse me, and I was hiring very quickly and rapidly, and often when he was away on a business trip, I'd have hired a few people and started them before he came back. He came into my office one day very upset that he had walked past the print floor and he'd seen a person he didn't know. He didn't know their face, didn't know anything about them, and here they were going to be working for him and serving his customers. So from that point on, and I'm dating myself a little bit here because it's before the days of our iPhone or smartphone in our pocket, I used to take Polaroid photographs of people when they started off on their first day and give a little bio and have it ready to greet our boss if he came back from an international trip or whatever and hadn't met them on their first day. But on the first day, regardless, I brought everybody around to absolutely everybody in every department to introduce them so they knew their way around, and it's quite an important thing to do. World events. Okay, acknowledge the impact of world events such as natural disasters, terrorist attacks, the election results in the last couple of weeks. It was interesting. It's probably in the 23 years I've lived here, it's probably the first time that I really saw an impact in that in the workplace. The next day I was teaching in a hospital environment in Annapolis, and it was a group of professionals, and it was behind the scenes. We were nowhere near patients. We were in a training facility tucked away in the hospital, and the participants had to give a little presentation. It was part 2 of a presentation skills training. And one by one people getting up, and part of the presentation they were to talk about what they were passionate about, and 2 or 3 people broke down and said they were passionate about their families and they felt unhappy and insecure with the results that had happened. So I found myself trying to counsel without talking about politics, but to try and kind of acknowledge that people were going through some form of grief for those who were unhappy with the result, while other people in the room were celebratory and were quite happy. So it was new territory for me, believe me, but with all of these events, it's gingerly approaching it that people realize that, although the show must go on, that we recognize that there's a human impact to things that may go on around us, such as, it could be a severe car accident, it could be something, that's affecting a couple of people in a smaller community or in a larger city. It could be something that's, an event that's happening that day that is impacting everybody. So just notice these life events and show some compassion to them. Understanding, and this is a big one that I do a lot of training on when it comes to folks understanding different perspectives when it comes to running a customer service team. Noticing a change in a team member's behavior, acknowledge and support it. Fantastic example I saw of that quite recently was a gentleman. I was working with a group of men who were mechanics. I was brought in to do some team building with them, and there was some miscommunication going on, all men, all kind of not talking too much. And I was meeting with them all individually first before we did a team building afternoon together. And one gentleman said how he really admired one of his supervisors for noticing that his behavior had changed, his own behavior had changed. And he had quite a lot of personal issues going on, including going through a divorce and some health issues of family members, and he didn't want to talk about it and was bottling it all up, but as a result was coming in and being quite aggressive per se, and short-tempered with his teammates. So that being said, he didn't express to anybody. He was keeping his private life private and wasn't talking to anybody in the workplace about it. His boss had noticed a change in his behavior, and one day just called him over one morning and before he kind of intercepted him before he got to his workstation and said, "Hey, come on over here, let me treat you to a soda," and brought him to a vending machine and brought him a Coke, and they went out walking. Coca-Cola will love this advertisement. So walked them over to the vending machine, got him a Coke, and just said, "Hey, you just don't seem yourself, everything okay?" That gentleman went on to say that he spoke to his boss for 10 minutes and it felt like the weight of the world had been taken off his shoulders. He just felt like the stress, he had shared it with somebody, his boss had kind of said, "I've got your back, if you need to take time off, look, you don't need to be, working yourself into a tizzy here. If you just need to walk away, just tell people you have an appointment, and I know you have an appointment. Just don't let it get to the point where you're acting in a way that you may regret later." And he said it totally saved him from having an incident in the workplace that may have been unhealthy for more than just himself. So notice people's behavior, and without prying. We've got HIPAA, we've got confidentiality. We do like to try and keep the line between home and work as clear as we can. But notice people and just say, "Hey, I'm here if you need somebody," or "Here's our employee assisted program number, here's our human resource. If there's anybody, if you need to talk, if you need time, let me know." Make small adjustments to schedules or responsibilities when an internal customer may need it. So trying to build up a team effort in that so that it's not one person taking advantage of wanting a whole lot of flexibility, that it is a give and take situation, that you coach people through it. Hey, looks like you've a situation happening at home that you need to get home early for the next 3 days, but we need to get all of this done. If you can do that another time, we'll cover for you here if you can cover for that person at another time. So do that kind of bartering negotiations with people, but be open to making small adjustments if you can to people. Empathy. Empathy, the definition of empathy: the feeling that you understand and share another person's experience and emotions. The ability to share someone else's feelings. Really, can we show empathy if we haven't experienced it? I don't believe we can. I can believe we can show sympathy, but I certainly coach people time and time again. Do not fake empathy. It is something you can do. You can try and, we can fake a little bit of confidence when we're in a leadership position, or we're in a parent role when our kids are afraid of a bad dream they've had or things like that. We can kind of fake a bit of confidence when people need leadership. But to fake empathy is disastrous in a team. So if you really have no personal experience similar to another situation, use expressions such as like, "I have no idea how you could possibly be feeling, but just let me know, please let me know how I can help. You know, saying things like that as opposed to, you know, general things of, you know, I know how you're feeling when they know that you haven't gone through anything close to what they have. So don't fake empathy. We can show sympathy. But certainly if you have experienced something similar and somebody's going through a traumatic time, it's definitely worth sharing the story with them when you get a chance if yours has been very, very similar to them. So the understanding part, I'm seeing that more and more, and perhaps it's as we get busier on the East Coast. Like I said, in the 23 years I have been here, I have seen a change in how hectic we're getting and how overscheduled we can get, our kids can get, you know, our families, and that kind of thing. And these things, we've all lived through a very noisy 18 months on the media that has had an impact on people regardless of where they sit in the world right now. It's had an impact on how the media has changed. I'm hoping it'll change differently for the future. I think everybody's starting to silence a lot of it, which may help us. But all of these things we need to show a little understanding to as people are coping.
Alison, this is Sonia. We have, I just wanted to comment that in our poll, when we asked the question, what do internal customers want? Actually, everybody who responded to that poll question responded understanding.
Wow.
That understanding, yeah, was the you know, the number one, I guess, characteristic of a workplace that the internal customers wanted. So why do you think that is?
I think we've got busy, and I think we've tried to separate work life in a way that's, because we're so concerned with HIPAA and privacy laws and not, you know, when someone calls in now, they just literally can say, I'm out, right, instead of saying I'm sick and this is where I'm sick for and everything else. That can be one factor on it. I think the pressures outside of work are increasing currently, you know, just to do with world economy, to do with outside factors, and that puts extra pressure on people. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I put it there because I'm hearing it everywhere. I'm hearing people go, my boss doesn't understand me, you know, they don't understand that and they can be anybody they're working with, you know, the whole team or part of the team. So it is something that I think we just need to watch when we see people's moods change a little bit, and just kind of reach out and say, are you okay? Can I do anything to help you? Instead of assuming that person's just losing their motivation, I think taking that little extra bit of time. And I think as we go through and talk more about kindness, I think that will help people loosen up a little bit more and share their feelings a little bit more when it comes to understanding. But like I say, I love that example of the two gentlemen working together in a very, you know, alpha male dominated group setting, and all it took was a can of Coke and a 10 minutes to make somebody feel like they were needed, wanted, and understood, you know. So it doesn't take a whole lot for us to get there. But thanks for that input. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So the thanks part, thanking people. And this, I like to make little acronyms. That's what we trainers and motivators do to make it stick out in our minds. But this came from, honestly, as I go around different organizations, and when I hear unsolicited compliments about a leader, I always want to get into, without asking too many questions, I do more observation than questioning, why is that person admired by so many different people? The example I'm going to give you of this one is a gentleman who has retired. His name is John Wells, and he was town manager of the town of Leesburg when I did town-wide training for everybody from public works, customer service training, and I also went back and did diversity training from public works to accounts payable, accounts receivable, every single department in the town. And unsolicited, people from trash collectors to directors would say, he's a great man, he's just a great leader, he really cares for us. And I'd hear these compliments. And I met John a couple of times, and he appeared like a nice gentleman, but he didn't appear like this overwhelmingly charismatic person that I was hearing all these stories about. And so people would say, well, he knows what we do, he understands what we do. Well, one of the things that really struck me was about 2 years after I had completed the town-wide project, and I was just going back as a visitor for a couple of different trainings, I met his personal assistant who said to me, every single day she worked for John Wells, he thanked her for a specific thing she did that day. So she would leave for work, and she'd be leaving in the evening, and he was still there, and he'd say, Alison was her name, say, Alison, thank you so much for today, in particular that spreadsheet with the numbers that really helped me clarify and get to a point. He would give details of what he was thanking her for that day, and not a day went by that he didn't thank her. So I thought, that's incredible, but that was part of his management of people. He noticed what they did and he thanked them for doing it. So with this acronym, I'm going through it. Thanks. Take the time to notice good work, and it takes time to notice other people's good work. It may be that they really worded an email fantastic, they handled a difficult customer, they got through a pile of filing that's been sitting there for years that everybody wanted done. Any little thing that you can notice, take time to notice it. The H is for hear your internal customers. Let's hear what they're saying and what they're doing. It's interesting with the political environment that we had. I was reminded of back in England, in the UK, in the early days of politics, when politicians used to stand on soapboxes in the corner. They used to pay people in their campaign, they used to give them money to go to public houses, pubs, to go sip, go sip, S-I-P, to sit amongst the locals to see what it was that were their key points. So I say that from my days with being a human resource manager. You need to listen and not be part of the conversation, but to hear what it is that's important to your internal customers, and obviously have conversations where you're acknowledging and you're paraphrasing back that you hear them as well. And so the A is acknowledge good work daily. So we've got to be like the John Wells of the world. We've got to be acknowledging on a daily basis, whether it's a quick email, and it's a lot of work, but it's there, and it just takes a couple of seconds more to do it. And we need to do that on a daily basis. The N, new, find new and creative ways to say thanks. Oftentimes we're restricted with budgets and stuff. We don't have money to be giving people bonuses, buying people gifts, and we need to get creative. It can be something as simple as going to the dollar store. There's 101 ways in 10 minutes I can show you around the dollar store to pick something that gives people little quirky thanks gifts. I remember one manager giving out candles with a little card to anybody who was very energetic and very sunshine kind of atmosphere. She'd go, you light up the room when you walk in. I mean, there's little things that you can do that can show kindness and thanks. And then the K, the kind, complete small acts of kindness every day. I have on the project that I'm working on a big customer service project where the project manager is a retired ranger, and stiff upper lip type of guy, but really nice and personable guy too. But he has seen me with my team of different instructors. He has seen me do little small acts of kindness for over a year now, and it might be that I'll, if I'm stopping for a cup of tea, I'll pick up ones I'll have noticed what other people are drinking, and I'll buy their drink for them and bring it in. They go, how did you remember I like my coffee that way? And go, I noticed. And as a result, he's like doing those kind of things. I see him do it for our internal customers and for our team. It's just you can kind of influence kindness when you do little small acts of kindness around you every day. So that leads to the S, to stimulate positive energy. And this is one where I say you can't fake empathy, but you can sure fake positive energy. You got to fake it till you can make it, particularly if you want to be a leader in customer service and positive energy. I have a friend of mine who was working as a clown. She had her own business as a clown when her daughter was dying of cancer. And me being self-employed, I was going through a tough time where I had 4 people die on me in the space of 1 year, and actually in the space of 6 months. And I had to get up and be positive and motivating, and every job I'm self-employed, working on contracts and adjunct, and so I have to get good reviews each time. And when you're going through all that bereavement and all that stress, it's hard to kind of be in character. And that's exactly how she coached me in that year. When I said, how could you get up and be a clown when your daughter was dying at home? She said, as I put the makeup on, I became the clown. And as I became the clown, I escaped from the stress of having a daughter at home that was passing away from cancer. So my time at work in my clown outfit got me an escape, and I was the best clown I could be so I could get more work to provide for my daughter. And as I took off the makeup and got back into home, I then was the mother that I needed to be for her, because I'd had a small break from character and got into another one. So I've used that one ever since, and that happened in 2006 to me. We've got to fake that positive energy if we want to, if we don't have it every morning. But once you fake it, you soon actually feel it in that one. So fake it till you feel it is a good one when it comes to positive energy. So what are external customers expecting from us then? And we had a poll on this one. So we had professionalism, efficiency, and again we put understanding in there. So, and our millennials are a whole new bunch of customers here, so it's kind of interesting to kind of throw them in there. But all generations, I believe, expect this at different levels. Do we have a poll on that one, Sonia? Did we poll for that one, or was that?
Yes, we sure did. We actually, interestingly enough, so as we mentioned, internal customers, the focus was on understanding, but with the poll, nobody responded understanding for what external customers are looking for. We were 50-50 professionalism and efficiency.
Isn't that excellent, right? So isn't that, you know, so to build us up, we're looking for our teammates, we're looking for the people close to us to understand what we're going through, understanding what it's like to deal with customers and everything else. But when we're customers, we expect professionalism and efficiency, right? So that's interesting. So professionalism, appearance of our staff and locations. And here's a challenge nowadays, folks, and I see this again, as someone who I think I probably observe more than the average person who grew up here, because I'm always observing America as a fascinating culture that I didn't grow up with, even though I'm here 23 years. And I have noticed casual Friday has kind of become casual Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday is, hey, all goes, right? That our dress code is changing. And here's the thing that we need to be careful of. We need to be careful that we don't have an unconscious slip in standards. It's okay for us to say the world is getting a little less formal than it used to be, but I need to coach on every change of season, on every new employee. I need to coach them as to what is acceptable now. And it may be, you know, what's acceptable to wear now wasn't acceptable 5 years ago, or maybe just the season, fashion happens and something new comes out. Or as my mother says, there's nothing new in fashion, it just comes back again. So, you know, something may come up in fashion that you're going, that's just not appropriate for the workplace, but we've never had to address it before. So our people are expecting professionalism, a certain appearance. We need to constantly keep updating what we expect that to be for our staff and our locations. Attitude of our management and staff. Obviously, people are looking for a positive, professional attitude for our management and staff. They don't expect our staff to lose their temper, even though as customers, people will lose their temper. I always put that back to the expression of the customer is always right. Unfortunately, that expression has made the customer very self-righteous, and I'm right even when I'm wrong. And so we have to coach our staff to be able to validate the customer without necessarily having to feel that the customer is always right when they're acting inappropriate. We just need to calmly validate and listen to the individuals. Adaptable, policies and procedures that help and not hinder service. I hear this is probably the #1 complaint that I hear of customers out on the road. It's like, don't be trying to enforce a rule that doesn't make sense to me. You know, it's not making sense, and why do I have to go up to the chain, and why do I have to lose my cool before somebody listens to something that's a little silly here, or it's not making sense. So we've got to look at our policies and procedures and say, are they really helping our service rather than hindering it? So we've got to look at that. Efficiency, time matters. Time matters. Processes should be continuously reviewed for ease of use. Everybody in this world is getting more and more used to one-click purchasing. One, not having to speak to people, being able to get information really handy, being able to kind of get in and out of places efficiently, multitask, do things in in a very, very efficient way. So we've got to make sure that our processes are constantly being reviewed for that, that our staff are friendly and efficient. So we need people who are like, while they're giving great customer service, they're also getting the job done. While they're being chatty and friendly, they're still getting the job done. And we need to survey our customers for ways to improve our service. And people don't like doing surveys unless they're paid to do it. In this day and age, they like to have, okay, you're going to give me a coupon if I answer this. You're going to tell me up front. It'll take 1 minute and you'll get a $10 coupon. But I say to folks, if you want to start surveying in little individual ways, just have your frontline customers say, okay, here's a question we're going to ask. The question of the week is, so at the end of every conversation, you know, did you find you'd ease of process when it came to ordering such a thing or finding the information? Just one question a week that they ask in the conversation that they're having, and you can get a lot of information from that. Adaptable policies and procedures need to have some wiggle room. We end up giving in to a lot of policies and procedures when people complain up the chain. By the time it gets to the senior management, we suddenly find, okay, we'll make an exception at this point because the person created enough stink about it. Trying not to put ourselves in that situation. Staff need to be proficient in the policies and they need to be empowered to service customers. I think one of the good examples myself and Libby were talking about when we were preparing this PowerBrew was, you know, a banking policy. If you call up a bank or a mobile phone would be another good example. If you see there's a charge on your account and you're not happy with it, oftentimes a teller in different banks will be given the power to be able to waive one of those fees per person every 3 months or whatever, in order to kind of do the customer service and to not escalate the call or the mood of the individual. So we need to empower our staff when we can to service customers without giving everything away and that from a profitability point of view. Kindness matters. I just want to give you a quick example of two very, very close and dear people to me. Grocery store Bill is a gentleman that I know that works in a local grocery store here to me, close to Annapolis. He gives out his own business cards. He gets them printed. They're $10 for 1,000. Gets them printed in Office Depot whenever he comes up with a nice expression. Some were as simple as smile, and then in the bottom right-hand corner would have his name Bill, and he gave them out to everybody regardless. Every single person that went through his grocery line, he would give that card and wish people a nice day. Some of them were funny little expressions, some were motivational. I had customers of his tell me, I won my bingo because I brought his card because he said it was lucky, it was going to be a lucky month or something. And I had individuals who actually said that they kept the card. Bill gave him a card on the day. This one gentleman said Bill gave him a card on the day that he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And Bill's card said something like, you can do it, or you can beat it, or whatever. And he kept that card on his visor, and he said he touched that visor every single day, and he lived 5 years later. He was still alive and believed Bill motivated him. But one of the stories that really strikes me, and Bill was one of the fastest cashiers in his lines were always the longest because people were always joining them, waiting to get their card. They were collecting them like Pokemon cards. And Bill was always the most fastest and efficient and bagging groceries and getting through people quicker than anybody else. But one day he told me a story of customers of his, that an older couple who came through his line every week, and he gave his cards out, and it was usually the woman who took the cards. And one day the gentleman was there on his own, and he said, oh, where's your wife today? And he said, my wife is at home. We had some bad news. My father-in-law died, and my mother-in-law moved in with us, and my mother-in-law is in a really terrible state. She really just can't, she's barely eating, she's not talking, you know, we can't really get her to come out of herself. She's devastated. So Bill gave the gentleman the card. He said, do you want the card? And the gentleman said, just throw it into the grocery bags. The wife will get it when she's unpacking. The next week, the gentleman came back in, and Bill said, how's your wife doing? How's your mother-in-law doing? And the gentleman said, my mother-in-law is doing fine, Bill, thanks to you. I said, really? Thanks to you? Thanks to me. What did I do? And he said, well, he said, I put the groceries on the kitchen counter, and my wife and my mother-in-law started unpacking the groceries. And the next thing we heard my mother-in-law sing. I said, Ma, it's great to hear you sing. I said, well, she said, I'm going to be fine. I got my sign. And she put the card that she had found in the grocery bag on the kitchen counter. It said, all is well. Bill. Her husband's name was Bill. And so we don't know these acts of kindness and the power that we have, and how we influence that around each other. Bill became so popular in the grocery store that people were fighting to be beside him on each side of the cashier, each side, and the cashier beside him that would get the regular spot, she started giving out lollipops because she wasn't going to be outdone by the business card. So it has an influence around you. Mail lady Mary is someone, and I'm watching my time here, so I'm just going to briefly tell you, it's just someone who delivered mail in our neighbourhood that went to so much extra thought. If you weren't here to sign for a parcel, she'd leave a note and say, if you can sign this, I can leave it tomorrow, it'll save you a trip. When I was changing my name, my last name, she noticed the change come in, and she knocked on the door and said, I just want to make sure, is this you, because it's coming, this thing's coming in, I don't want them to go back if they're not you. And I said, oh, thank you so much, yes, that's me. Just little things. One day in kindness, our neighbourhood here, and there's 140 houses in this neighbourhood, we decided to have a Mary Day, and we all left a little gift for Mary in our mailbox. And I came across her that day, and she was in tears with all the little gifts of cookies and little kind of small gifts that were within the federal giving that we could give to her, and she was overwhelmed by the kindness she got back. These things matter. That's how we get our customers for life. So, just to talk real quickly towards the end here, current trends. Governor Hogan, I don't know if you're aware, he was only a couple of days in office when he put into law a mandate for his state departments to have customer service training and increase. Apparently his transition team had done a lot of mystery shopping in all of the different services that the state offers. And he was not happy at all with the level of professionalism that he saw in customer service training. So he has an initiative there, and you can look that up on his website, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory for all of us there. It's talking about friendliness and courteous and timely and response. It's all the things that we've talked about here with different words. Accurate and convenient and those kind of things. So truthful and transparent. It's pretty straightforward. And if you go into any state office now, because I'm around all different ones in a given week, this is beginning to show up in every office I go in. I can see that as a big poster everywhere, so it's interesting. And then last but by no means least, I wanted to mention the Chick-fil-A effect. If anybody has ever had a meal in Chick-fil-A, you will notice it is very different to other fast food restaurants. And the biggest thing that I hear customers say is they care. They say my pleasure like they really mean it. Their tone is nice, they're efficient. I was recently, and they do all this listening and understanding and empathy, they do all of it. I literally was going through the drive-through. I had my 84-year-old neighbor on speakerphone, and I had been trying to catch her before I got into the line to see if she wanted anything. I was going to bring it home for her. And so she's speaking on the speakerphone, and I've already placed my order, and I'm coming up to the window. And I said to the girl who was handing me my stuff, because they have people on the drive-thru, they have people standing outside the window as well. And she was handing me the food, and I said, you're going to see me in another minute, because my neighbor just ordered, so I'm going to go around and order again. She said, oh, no, don't go around. I'll give your order here. Pull your car into the side, and I'll bring your food straight out to you. There's no need for you to line up again. I thought, wow, here is this person in this fast food, fast-paced line. She heard me. She didn't just brush me off. She heard exactly what I said and found a way to adapt. But if you talk to people in Chick-fil-A, they are treated so kindly internally. And in their training, when they're taught, it's a whole impact of how you train staff and how you value staff, and how their philosophy is, we're not here to just sell chicken, we're here to make a difference in people's lives. And so it's pretty wild to kind of see the effect that they have on their customers. Apparently accidents are down around a couple of blocks around a Chick-fil-A. People traffic, their behavior in traffic is better. And surrounding businesses and restaurants have noticed behavior behavior improvement with their staff just from the fact that they're going in and out of Chick-fil-A and they're hearing my pleasure and it's kind and they're seeing kind customer service. So it's well worth looking into, folks. It's quite a phenomenon that's going on in relation to their branding, and they're doing a great job of it. That being said, just to give a little summary, keeping customers for life summary. Treat your internal customers well and they will look after your customers. It's as simple as that. When they experience kindness throughout the day, they're more ready to be able to handle people who may be stressed out as the customer themselves. Acknowledge good work on a daily basis, and that takes time and effort, but we need to do it. And just think today, I always say if you can get one learning from one seminar, from one day out training, if you get one thing that you're going to do differently from today, do that. Acknowledge people. It doesn't matter that they're your direct reports or your colleagues. Acknowledge somebody's good work on a daily basis. Encourage small acts of kindness through your own example and recognition when you see it. I say it so often, I'll say, that was so kind of you. And people's faces light up when you say to them, that was really kind of you. I really appreciate that. Holding the door open and little things. And I say to people, if you're holding the door open to get a thank you, you're holding the door open for the wrong reason. You know, don't wait. Don't be worried if people don't appreciate it. They'll notice it in the end, and it doesn't matter. You feel better for doing it one way or the other. Seek to constantly streamline your processes, and we've got to do that for customers. Really, in this day and age, everything's improving and getting faster by the minute, and we need to too. Have some wiggle room in your policies and empower your employees to implement that wiggle room. And kindness matters. At the end of the day, I'm hearing it, all the time out there when I'm going to teach customer service. People just say it's the little things that brings them back. It's people acknowledging them and people having a positive attitude and people not escalating a situation. The best way to de-escalate is to kill them with kindness. So that's kind of where we're at in relation to the overall presentation. So there's some references there, the governor's website in relation to his customer service initiative and some Chick-fil-A of where they came to be where they're at. Okay, and I'll leave it over to questions that we might have.
Thank you, Allison. Wow, that was really inspirational as well as good information. I loved your stories, very touching, a lot of them, and just it really accentuates the human aspect of customer service. And so I do have a question for you. I've always been a strong believer of what you said, that you have to have good internal customer service in order to have good external customer service. But how do you handle the person within the organization, maybe they're in a back office and they're like, I don't have customers, so what I do doesn't matter?
Excellent. When I hear that, I have to say, Libby, when I hear that question, I really do challenge that individual does not know their role and the importance of their role in the organization. Because when we have a true understanding of our role in the delivery of customer service, we'll always know that we have customers. We'll know where we are in the chain. We'll know that internal customer that I'm serving eventually serves the front line. When I worked in that factory in Ireland, everybody knew we'd customers and nobody ever saw a customer. It was a factory in an industrial estate and we all knew our customers and knew our role within that of the impact that we were having on customer service. So when I hear organizations or hear anybody in an organization say that, I challenge those in leadership to literally be able to sell their company to their staff in a way that shows them the impact that everybody is having in relation to customer service.
Thanks, Allison.
Okay.
We had another question, Allison, which is, there was a poll question about people doing more business online. Customer service is becoming, and everyone seemed to agree that it is becoming more important. So the question is, what's different about customer service when we're considering an online business?
Well, the thing about online customer service is we have to get people who can sound empathetic, sympathetic, understanding in text. And You know, when they do studies of face-to-face communication, they say that 55% of our message is body language and 37% of it is tone. So when we're going online, we only have the 8% left. We have the text. So we've got to really coach our staff in the importance of how we say things in text. And this is a particular challenge with millennials when they are dealing with different generations themselves, because they don't take things, they actually read text very much on face value, and they don't read into the tone of it the way older generations will. So we've got to coach them in that, because they're used to communicating with text so much more than the generations before them, that they don't take the tone as personally as somebody like a boomer or veteran. The minute they see caps going, "You're yelling at me," you know, different things. So coaching people to be kind and to be responsive and to sound friendly in texting while answering, because a lot of online is text chat support, and I've had some really good experiences with it myself online with several different businesses, and I go, I like this because I can do this while I'm doing something else, and it's a very efficient way to do business. But I've seen some fantastic text support, T-E-X-T, and I've seen some disastrous ones. And the thing about text is it's right there. I can print it, I can screenshot it, you know, it's not necessarily something I need to record. I have it recorded, you know, so we've got a coach on that one.
Fantastic. That's, I think, absolutely true. I know, at least with my personal experiences, and I think with everyone, how much more important that text becomes, because it is difficult to get across anything, you know, certainly like what you're saying with tone of voice, the body language. We're so much more limited. That's great advice. We do have, I think we've got time for one more question, and this one maybe puts you a little bit on the spot, but somebody is asking, what do you think is most important when working with external customers, understanding professionalism or efficiency?
What I think is most important, I think the most important thing is to make the person feel validated. And if you noticed right there, I paused. Well, you can give yourself a moment before you answer and still be engaged with the individual. So we don't have to give our first thought, our first initial reaction when somebody may seem very annoyed and maybe making a personal attack or anything like that. So the professionalism part is that ability to remain calm and empathetic at the same time without appearing cynical or cold. And I go back, I teach it a lot in my classes, the 7-second delay. American TV, live TV, not Facebook Live now, but live TV on cable, is 7 seconds old. They've given themselves 7 seconds to pull away from the camera, to not react to something if they need to kind of censor us on 7 seconds on something that's drastic. If we have a pause for a couple of seconds and we have some expressions to say that keep us calm while we assess what we're going to say next, I think that's probably a number one talent that we can develop and work, and a skill that we can work on.
That's great. Thank you very much. And thank you so much, Allison, for all of this valuable information. I think it's extremely helpful and extremely pertinent today as we do have changing workplaces and more and more, let's say, channels for customer service through these online methods, as well as, you know, here's a perfect example doing the PowerBrew, right, and different methods of communication and modes of communication. So thank you so much. This has been fantastic. We want to let everybody know our time's about up, so we want to let everybody know that our next PowerBrew is Persuasion, Opening Minds to Your Message Before You Deliver It, and that will be presented by Mike Mannion, who has presented with us on PowerBrew before and is adjunct faculty. I also wanted to mention that if you're interested in having Allison Kelly provide training or work with your organization, you can please contact us through our website. Some of the additional workshops by Allison are up on the screen here, but you can contact us at the website, or through the website, or through the email info@advantagec.com. And again, our website is advantage-c.com. So Allison's a fantastic addition to our network of experts here, and we are thrilled to be able to continue to work with her and to be able to share her with our clients. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, folks.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Thank you, folks. Have a beautiful day.